Okay, hello and welcome to what is the fourth episode of the Teachers Run Club podcast. And if you've listened before, you'll know that what we're going to try and do is talk to different people, different teachers, different educators and school staff from different backgrounds and decipher and look at how they are active, what they do to keep active, and hopefully find out something inspiring that they have done that will motivate and inspire you. So my guest this evening or today is Andy Granville. Hello, Andy, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So today's episode, we're going to be mainly looking at challenges that you are setting for yourself. So active challenges and different ways that you can involve your school or your community in that event. Now, Andy has taken on a few challenges himself that he's going to share, and we're going to talk about one in particular. And myself, I've taken on a few challenges. I've tried to rope teachers and my sort of friends and colleagues into at the same time. So we really want to focus on how, as educators and as teachers, we can use the challenges we're putting ourselves through to inspire our communities. So, Andy, thank you again for joining us. Do you want to give us a quick introduction to yourself, where you teach or what age groups you teach, and how you got into running in the first place?
Yeah, so I've been teaching now for 10 years. I'm based in Nottingham, in the East Midlands, obviously. I'm currently teaching year 4, but I've had a range from year 1 through to year 6. So I've managed to cover all bases there, which is quite nice because obviously all the children are different at different ages, and that's quite fun. And talking to them about different things, especially with my challenges. So it's quite fun to talk to the older ones because they understand the distance a bit more, whereas the little ones always make me laugh because I'll say, I'm running this many miles, and they'll say, oh, my dad ran 5,000 meters, and they think that that's further, and it's quite amusing having those conversations. But yeah, I suppose apart from being a child and running around like a lunatic, like we all do, I finished university and I went into triathlon for a little while. And I basically progressed each year the distance in triathlon. So started with a sprint and then on to Olympic and then sort of half Iron and then Ironman. I did a couple of Ironmans, an Ironman Bolton, and I did the Outlaw, which is the Nottingham one. And then just kind of life and my own children got in the way a bit. So I couldn't really dedicate the time to train for 3 different disciplines. So especially the bike, because you have to put in so many miles on the bike. So I just started running more, focusing on running, realised that actually that's probably my strongest discipline out of the 3. So just started with your 5K park runs, things like that. Joined a local running club. So I run with Beeston AC, and then a bit like the triathlon really, just kept sort of increasing the distance further and further and further, and then started doing silly challenges for charity and stuff, which is what I try to do now as a hobby, I suppose.
And it's funny, you've said you've gone from Ironman, it was too tough to train for, yet some of your challenges are spanning over multiple days rather than just one day.
Yeah.
Those triathlons and Ironman, it's such an inclusive environment. Triathlon is, you really can access it at any level, like you said, down from the super sprint through to the full Ironman distance. And I've got I've 70.3 Ironman this Sunday, actually,
nice.
which is my 3rd ever one that I've taken part in. And yeah, it takes a lot of dedication. And we talked in our last episode a lot about, so we won't spend too much time on it today, but we spent a lot of time talking in the last episode about fitting that training in around the school day and active commutes and run clubs and park run as well. So that's not what we'll talk about today, but it's so if you wanted to hear more about how you fit those runs in, check out episode 3. But today, as we said, we're looking at those challenges and how we can get ourselves and our schools involved in them. So thank you for that brilliant introduction. And I wanted to jump straight in and talk about your Nottingham to Dunkirk challenge. And this is the first time we ended up talking, was in February, and I think it was on your 3rd attempt, and you were actually due to run through my town. So I was going to join you for some of the run, and we were actually going to record on the same day. But if I remember rightly, the weather was atrocious. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was probably the most unlucky week weather-wise. I think we had 2 different storms in that week, which, that basically, as I'll go into in a bit, brought an end to the challenge. Just the weather was so bad, and the trails I was running on, or farmers' fields, were just water, boggy and muddy, and it was just impossible.
So to put this challenge into perspective, and I thought you'll be able to do better justice than I can, but you were running from Nottingham to Dunkirk, which was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, 288 miles across the February half term, which looked at about 40 miles per day.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
You were raising money for, is it Diabetes UK?
Yes, yeah, for Diabetes UK.
So how did this whole challenge come about in the first place?
So if I go right back, the whole reason it was Diabetes UK was my youngest daughter, Esme, has type 1 diabetes that she got when she was 4, and it completely flipped everything upside down. It was something, obviously we knew of diabetes, but something we didn't really know about, if that makes sense. So there was a lot of learning, a lot of up in the night, and with her being 4, it really showed me how strong and resilient children are. And it made me want to do something, because the charity obviously helped us through the early stages, and they still do support us now. I wanted to do something for them and raise some money for them. So the challenge came about from, I've done various other challenges and distances, and I thought, I want it to be big impact, so it really makes people sort of say, you're doing what? Because then it gets people talking more. It wasn't just about the money, which I actually really enjoyed the whole, I've forgotten the word now, the exposure of it and getting people to learn about diabetes and look for those 4 symptoms. Because when Esme was diagnosed, we didn't know any of the symptoms. And then once we were told them, we were like, I can remember that and that and that and that now. And right. We didn't know that. So I was on like local news, I was in the newspaper, all of that kind of thing, talking about the diabetes as well, which was really good exposure. And funnily enough, we had a friend whose daughter was diagnosed, and she was diagnosed because her mum remembers what we told her about what to look for. And she actually spotted it, took her daughter to the doctor, and she had type 1. So that ticks that box. Just that one person, I've helped one person.
Wow, that's incredible. And that's one person you know about as well. You don't know how far your reach would have been.
Yeah, so it was obviously, raising money is always a good one as well. But yeah, I talked about it with my wife. We always go on holiday to France. So that's kind of where France came from. Dunkirk Beach, just because of the history side of it, with the war and things. And yeah, it just kind of, I remember sitting in a pub with my wife in summer, trying to sort of hatch a plan together and breaking it down into days. And unfortunately, we were all set, ready to go. Literally everything was sorted: hotels, ferry crossings, everything, kit. And then COVID hit, and that was it. That put a stop to it, obviously. And I know there was bigger things happening in the world, and I know lots of people obviously suffered through COVID and lost their lives. So I completely understand why my challenge had to stop. We tried to rearrange it for the following year, and because at the time we said, we'll just postpone it, because actually it's, we didn't know how big COVID was. We didn't know if it was going to be done in a month. So we said, oh yeah, we'll just do it next year, but obviously it was still around. And then we finally got it into February this year, to finally get going. And yeah, unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan with the weather, but I still raised a lot of money, a lot of exposure and stuff, so a lot of awareness. So I was happy.
Oh, brilliant. It's a fantastic story how you've gone from like the reason behind it. I think so many people, whether they're taking on something absolutely huge or running their first race for life, it's because they've got a reason, someone in their family, someone in their close friends that they want to raise money for. And for a lot of people, that's how they actually get into running in the first place, isn't it? It's something that's inspired them. They want to make a difference to their community or to their family, and support a charity that's really supported them. So I absolutely love the cause. And I love the fact that you just went massive. And I just want to talk quickly now so for people listening, it's not about, it doesn't always have to be huge, does it? For you, this wouldn't have been the first time you ever went running. You didn't decide in, 2019, that I've never run before, but I'm going to run 7 ultra marathons in 7 days. So what were some of the early things that you did? And I know you talked about triathlon, but was there anything sort of before that, or what were the first kind of challenges that you did that kind of led towards this, do you think?
So I obviously I did local running events and races and stuff, and realized that I quite enjoyed it. And I found, for me personally, and obviously this is different for everyone, the further it was, the better I did. So, you know, whenever you say you're a runner, lots of people go, "Oh, are you really fast?" It's like, well, I'm not massively fast, okay, but I have just got a really good engine, I say, and I can just keep going and going. And it kind of all, the fundraising and the challenges kind of started way back when I was at my first primary school, where I started as an NQT, and the British Heart Foundation, again, so there's a charity link, they helped my dad, and I wanted to do something for them, and we did a whole school skipathon. So all the children had a slot throughout the day where we went outside and we had to skip for like 10 minutes, and we had the big long ropes, and parents came and supported and stuff, and it went really well. So I thought, I like this, I want to do something else. And then I did race. I did the Scafell Pike Marathon, which was a marathon, but you sort of were halfway, you're at the top of Scafell Pike, and then you come back down again. And that was sort of for another charity, and I got school involved a little bit with that one. But once I realised how big the support was in school and how much actually the kids loved me doing these things and that they could help and get involved, I did the Slate Trail Ultra in Snowdonia. So that was a 93-mile ultra around Snowdonia. And I did that to raise money for school to buy a defibrillator for the school and the local community. And that got so much input from the children and the parents. Everyone was backing that. And we ended up doing things in school. So I had my friend come in who does his own crazy challenges. And we did like a circuit training session with each class. So they'd come in, they'd do like a sort of HIIT session almost, and they got sponsored by their parents for that. And then all that money went into the pot. We did, you know, the things like Wear What You Like Day, and had to dress as their favourite sport or sports hero. And then it was just sharing everything. So through assemblies, as it got closer, I brought in bits of kit and showed them what I was using so they could see. And we had, obviously I had a tracker. So we sent the tracker sort of information out. So it was really nice when I finished that challenge and came back. Loads of the parents were saying, "Oh, we were tracking you, we were watching your dot." And apparently, I think it was the last 3 miles of the 93. For some reason, my dot just disappeared. And they all thought, "No, he's fit. He's had to pull out 3 miles to go." And no one could get hold of me because it's like in the middle of Wales. And then suddenly I'd finished. So that was really nice that actually the children had fully got involved and tracked me, and they'd raised money, and we got a defibrillator for the community. We had spare money. We got a table tennis table for school, and we got a load of sports kit and stuff. So it was really nice. It was really good. And then obviously my next challenge came along.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm just blown away because I think that, you know, so many people, so many educators and school staff are doing these brilliant things. And I wonder, or I probably know for a fact actually, that not many of you are sharing that journey with the pupils. And what you're doing, you're not reinventing the wheel here, are you? You're doing simple activities in school, but you're raising the profile of activity and challenge setting and risk taking, all these things that we want to install in the children that we teach. You're living that, and they're getting to see that and share that journey with you. And it's so simple, isn't it? And you're just talking to them and telling them about it. And the other thing is, you don't know, the impact might not be instant. It might be 10 years down the line that these things, they'll still remember them. And, oh yeah, my teacher did that. Oh yeah, maybe we could have a go. And you don't know, do you? You're kind of drip feeding this information into them, and maybe one day it will make a huge impact. You know, some of the challenges that I've done in school, or most of them, we've got bikes, and you might see on those 2 or 3 days of the event, you'll have 200 or 300 bikes in school, and you think, brilliant. And then it's about how can you keep that going? Because maybe the next day there'll be 4 bikes, and you think, right, what do I need to do to keep this, keep the wheels in motion? Pardon the pun. keep it fresh in their minds all the time. And I think, there's lots of little events that you're doing on the lead up to the big challenge. Challenge is brilliant. All right.
And it's really nice because I remember having, when I did the France run, and I did the assembly with the children and explained what I was doing and why, and showed pictures of my daughter and stuff to make it really real, I suppose, for them. And I literally finished the assembly, and 3 girls came up to me and said, if I bring you some money tomorrow, can that go towards your daughter? And I was like, that's lovely. That's really, really kind. But I said, just hold on to it for now, because we're going to do things in school. And then the next day, a boy came up to me and went, oh, Mr. Granville, do you know, I went running with my dad last night. We ran around the block 3 times because I wanted to go for a run after what you said. And it was little things like that. Although I'm doing something stupid and ridiculous, actually, that would have been nice for that dad, because he's had some time with his son and they've gone for a run together. And like you say, you don't know what that's going to do in the future. You don't know if they're going to come up with a charity run, or they see, the Nottingham half marathon or something and think, you know what, I'm going to do that. Because I remember my teacher when he used to do these silly things. And it's just teaching them all about that resilience, isn't it? And that resilience, not be afraid to go for it.
That is the key word, isn't it? Being resilient, and hopefully you'll see that in the classroom. And you've got things that you can reflect on as well in your teaching. These are things that I've been through. These are things that you've witnessed me doing, and I'm actually seeing you using those same skills here in the classroom or in the PE lesson. It's just in a completely different situation, but the skills are still exactly the same. When I do these challenges, I always get asked, why? Why are you doing this? And what is the most common question that you get asked when you explain, or at what point in the I'm running to or this far in this many days, at what point do people just go to you like, why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, it's something that always makes me sort of chuckle, I suppose. I always remember the first person I told. So where I live in a place called Beeston in Nottingham. And about 2 miles away, if that, maybe 1.5 miles, there's an actual place called Dunkirk. So when I said, I'm doing this massive challenge, I'm running to Dunkirk to raise money for diabetes, they were like, isn't that a bit easy for you? Like 1.5 miles down the road. And I was like, no, Dunkirk in France. And just that sort of sheer look of disbelief and, that why are you doing that? And when you explain, and, you always get that you're crazy, or a few people have said, is your car broken or something? Can you fly there instead? I was like, well, that's a bit easy then. But I think that helps with the shock of it in a way. It makes them think, blimey, I want to give this guy £5 or whatever it might be. I literally said to everyone, I don't care if you give me £1, everything will add up eventually to the fundraising and the charity. So yeah, it's just amusing when you tell people, because a few people were sort of like, oh right, okay, and that was it. And then some people would get really into it and ask, well, how are you doing that? How are you breaking it down? Where are you staying? When I did the challenge, I had just something really simple. I just made a little poster that I put on my hydration pack that said running Nottingham to France for Diabetes UK. And I pinned that on my bag so everyone could see it as I ran past them. And it was really nice. I was running through the pouring rain, and another bloke was out for a run, and he came up to me and sort of patted me on the back and said, well done. I think he ran with me for 3-4 miles, and we just chatted, which was really nice, because then those miles disappeared like it does when you run with someone chatting. You don't really notice. A guy got me in Market Harborough and was offering to buy me breakfast and stuff, and he was like, do you want me to get you some breakfast? And I was like, that's really kind, I've already eaten. And he was just saying, oh, amazing, really well done. And it just gets people thinking, I think, and they're going to go home and say, oh, this crazy bloke in town, and he's run all the way from Nottingham to here and he's getting all the way to France. But I think it just, I'm fit, but I don't look that, I'm not massively muscly, I'm not 6'4" or anything like that. And I think people sometimes think, oh, I can't do that. And that's another message I try to get over to the children and colleagues and my friends, and just say, look, you'd be surprised, you can do it. I've got friends now who are doing like you say, couch to 5Ks, or they're trying to walk every day in June, things like that for charity. And it doesn't have to be, 288 miles. It could literally be a 5K. It could be like you say, walking every day or doing something active for half an hour. And I think a lot of people need to not realize, because it sounds like I'm being a bit rude, but people need to believe in themselves a bit and just think, what? Yeah, why not? I can do that. I can do something like that.
Yeah. My next question to you was going to be about colleagues, actually, because we talked a bit about involving the pupils, but what are the colleagues saying? Are the activities that you're setting up at the school accessible to colleagues as well? Have you had colleagues that have decided, or friends that have said, actually, can I come out for a run with you? Or have you noticed more staff that you're working with maybe being a bit more active when they weren't before?
Yeah, definitely. So for the Slate Trail Challenge, I was at a different school. I set up an after-school run club for staff, so not for the children. They already had one for staff and stuff, and it was really nice. And I got the usual statement that I get if I say to someone, "Oh, I'll run with you." They always go, "Oh, no, I'm not as fast as you," and I always say, "No, I'm not. I'm going to run at your pace. I'm going to help you. It's not about me. I want to help you, whatever it might be. Get fitter, get stronger." Just get out there, whatever. It was really nice. We had a small group that I think once a week would go sometimes 2K, sometimes 5K, but it was actually at the end of a school day. As we all know in teaching, sometimes you have really hard days, you're feeling a bit down maybe, and we'd run, we'd chat, we'd laugh. It's just like a whole mental well-being session, and we'd all finish and they'd text me later saying, "Thanks, that was great. I love that. Same next week," things like that. And yeah, I had people saying, "I've just been out for a run because of you. You've inspired me just to go for a run, or to start running again, or to get a little bit fitter." So all those little wins I like to take as well, because, I'm just a normal guy, really. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not on TV or anything like that. But if I can get people to get outside and get in the fresh air, and it's just so good for your mental well-being, I think. It's my go-to. People always ask, "What do you do if you're sad or stressed or whatever?" And I say, "I go for a run." Like, surely that makes it worse because it's so hard. It's like, well, yeah, but I don't have to go fast. I can just go in the woods. I can go across country, and I just feel better. And I think everyone feels that. It's like people that go to the gym, cycle, swim. Might be hard to do it. They always say that first step's the hardest, but once you've finished your session, whatever it might be, you always feel better. You might ache a little bit, but you feel better.
Well, that's it. You never regret the session once you've done it, do you?
No.
But no, you're speaking my language. You're just sharing what you're doing, and like we said with the children, you don't know who you're inspiring, and you might find that actually 2 or 3 members of staff have gone out and gone for a run, or like you say, even just gone for a walk at lunchtime, and they've done that because they've noticed that it's possible. And maybe they didn't think that they could go out for a walk at lunchtime, or maybe they didn't think that they could walk the 1 mile to work rather than drive. But then they've seen that you've ran in, say, from a bit of a further distance, and suddenly walking a mile doesn't seem too hard or too impossible, because it's that first step, isn't it? It's, "Oh, I don't think I could do that," or "I'm not fit enough to do that." Well, you don't have to be. You just got to start. And I love what you said about the running club. I've dabbled at trying to start them at my school a few times, and you kind of get the ball rolling, and then suddenly, there's a week which doesn't go too well, and then you're stopped and you've got to restart. I think just by having someone like yourself who was like, "Well, I'm going anyway. If you want to join me, feel free." And it's not a race. It's, we're going to go out for a jog and a chat or a walk or whatever you want to do. And in 2 or 3 years' time, maybe we'll be, it's not measuring your journey with someone else's. You might be 3-4 years further down the line than that person. I remember when I couldn't run a mile without stopping and having to walk for a while. And now, like yourself, I love a long run, and I've got a 50K ultra in a few days' time, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. But if you'd said that to me 6 years ago, I said, "No way am I running that far." No way at all. What I'd really like to, I suppose we have just started doing it a bit, is tips for teachers. And if you're a teacher, or if you're an educator, and you think, "Actually, I've got an idea for a challenge. what would you say is the best way to go about it? Because you obviously need leadership on board. You need your leadership of the school to buy into what you're saying. Why are they going to say, yes, we're going to support you and this challenge? What kind of things, or did you have any barriers when you first pitched this to your leadership team?
No, so I think that's probably my first tip is just go for it and don't be afraid to ask. So when I did, I think it was possibly the Scarfell Marathon, one of them anyway, at my old school, I wanted to ask my head teacher if she'd pay, if the school would pay towards the entry fee. And I'd say, I'm doing it for school and things like that. And I was really nervous going in, and there was no hesitation. They were like, yeah, that's fine. The school will do that. And I sort of had a whole pitch ready, and she sort of answered yes really quickly. And I was like, oh, and she said, what? So that just seemed easier than I thought it would be. But then I went into it anyway. So I think that's the next tip, is just to have that information that what you're going to do with it. So don't obviously just say, I'm going to do this challenge. Okay, how are you going to involve the children? So the children could maybe run the same distance as a school. So that was something we toyed with the Run to France. So there's, say, I think 196, maybe 200 children in the school I'm in at the minute. So actually the year sixes could probably do 1.5 miles each altogether, and then you'd add those up, and doing little challenges like that. And I sort of sold it as well around the whole, I'll do assemblies, I'll talk to the children about mindset and resilience and the preparation and the hard work and determination and what you can get out of it if you don't give up. So having all of those sort of things to say, I think just helps your cause and helps your case a little bit. And as we've covered, really, it doesn't have to be a really silly distance. It doesn't have to be a silly, expensive race that's going to cost a fortune. So the school go, oh, no, I can't really, I'm not going to pay £300 for you to do an Ironman kind of thing. I think I've done it in the past where we've raised money and, we've done all kinds of things like cake sales and stuff, and the children decorated the cakes, or they made them at home with their families and then brought them in, and then we sold them, and just little things like that. I think selling it as a whole school experience almost helps, and then obviously you can get the community involved if your school's happy to do that and have parents in. So yeah, I think not being afraid to ask and just being prepared to sort of say what you're going to do with it. And like I said, I've done assemblies, and with my challenge not really panning out the way it did, I did another assembly afterwards, because obviously the children were really excited to find out how it had gone over the half term. And I said it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, is actually standing up in front of all those children saying I didn't finish, I couldn't do it. And I explained why, and I said how much I'd pushed myself to the limit and I couldn't have given anything else. And they were still really happy and still really proud. But it was that, like we've said, teaching them that resilience, and all it's done is given me more drive for whatever I do next. That whole thing, like with school, isn't it? Linking it to your learning. Okay, what went wrong? What can I learn from that? How can I do it better? And, you can do that in maths, you can do that in writing, whatever the subject is. So I'm kind of going away from the tips a bit there, but yeah, I wouldn't be afraid. Right. I wouldn't be afraid to ask and just go for it. And as we've said, don't think it's got to be something massive. It could just be, I'm going to do the local 5K I've never run before in my life, because to you, that's a massive thing.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Well, actually, when you were talking about the local events, it just made me think so many local half marathons rely on volunteers to run the aid stations. And I know that the Luton Half Marathon, where I work, they have some primary schools will come and run an aid station. So how great would it be if you, as a teacher and educator, are running that half marathon? You get to mile 7 at the aid station, it's all going to be pupils that you've taught and that are all there cheering you on, and they know your journey. Yeah, brilliant way to sell that.
Yeah, it's good. I think and the thing is, the children actually, and the parents, always surprise you with how much they will back you and go for it and stuff. I've never had a parent sort of say, well, I don't know, we're not going to get involved, or we're not going to do this or whatever. You know, I'm not asking every parent to donate and send money or anything like that. But if I'm doing something at school to do with the running, or like the circuit training sessions we did, the HIIT sessions, you know, get your kids in, get them in the PE kit. The skipathon, we had parents turning up doing it. It was just a massive event, and it was really good fun seeing everyone doing it. And actually in the HIIT, the children, you know, they took it seriously. They really hammered themselves. They wanted to be the best. They were like dripping with sweat and stuff. And I was like, this is brilliant, because you're pushing yourself, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to see that actually you can go further than you think. And that was another lesson I've always taught the children, is how powerful your mind is with these long distance challenges. You know, I remember the second day, it was, what was my second day? I think it was 50 miles. And I think I was at mile 35 and I was done. And I was just like, I can't go on. I'll maybe just stop. And I ended up just gritting it out as much as I could and tapping into my mental side of it. And yeah, I got to the pub where I was staying for the night in the end, got my meal, had a pint, felt those better.
Sometimes it's just the little things that can make all the difference when your mind goes to that place. You just need those little pick-me-ups. I know on a challenge that I'd taken on at work, it was during the school day, which was brilliant because the children saw us leave from the school and they followed our journey, and we were cycling to Brighton that day. And the children were then able to send voice messages and short videos to us, and our support crew was able to show us every now and then. And as it got, you know, later into the afternoon and people started to feel the effect of being on the bike for so long, just seeing like a class of children cheering you on, giving you little silly challenges to do. I always refer to one of my colleagues who got challenged to sing Let It Go whilst we were cycling through central London. And he just completely, you know, he loved it. He got the words completely wrong, but just, it was so funny. And for all of us in the team, it was a huge pick-me-up. And, you know, you're talking about these challenges specifically being on your own. But if you're thinking of doing something, you know, doing something with colleagues, 2, 3, 4 of you, it makes life so much easier, doesn't it? Because you've got someone to bounce off, someone to travel through that journey with. And you're not always all going to be low at the same time, and you're not all going to be high at the same time. So you got that kind of teamwork where you can lean on one another to be able to get through those challenges. And if you are on your own, it's how are you working with your family and your school to make sure you do get picked up when you are stuck in the third storm of the weekend. It is cold and horrible.
We could always do like you were saying, because you do things with other staff. It just made me think of like relays. So they could do, you know, if they're not great runners because they're new to it, you could do a race where you get 6 of your staff and you each do a couple of miles each, because they can manage that. That's okay. And actually they'll still have that same sort of satisfaction at the end of it, that they've done it and they've all worked together, and they'll have a good laugh at the end and stuff like that.
Something that I've loved the idea of doing, and I've not been able to pull it off yet, which is if you look at something like Ultra Challenge and their 100-kilometer walks, you know, walking. I think walking is dangerous because a lot of people think it's easy, and it's not easy. You know, you try and walk 100 kilometers with non-stop, you're looking at anywhere between 24 and 37 hours of movement. And I think a lot of people struggle when they think, oh, I'll do walking because that's easy. But something like Ultra Challenge, they break their events down into stages. So if you do have a relay team, you could walk 25k, and then your next teammate could walk 25k. But also, if you had someone who thought I could do the whole thing, they could do it as well. So you could have a team of 10 people. 2 of them could be walking 100k, 3 of them might walk 75, 1 person might walk 25, 2 might walk 20, 50, all part of the same team doing the same challenge. It's so inclusive. You know, it's a word we love as teachers, but it's no different for adults, is it? You know, these things need to be inclusive for everyone. And that is a brilliant one that I think you were talking earlier about entry costs. And that was the barrier for me for getting a team of teachers on that particular challenge, was entry cost. But I've learned more towards planning them myself. It's maybe cheaper, but it's time consuming, as you'll know. You know, the logistics that go into planning something of that scale, it's no easy task.
No, it's yeah, I completely agree. So it's nice when you do an organised event and you pay the money and everything's done and ready for you. But yeah, France, well, it was nearly a year of planning the Nottingham to France run, because there was so much going into it, like where I'm staying, the route I'm going to run. Even though I planned the route to a fine tee, I still managed to, I think it was on the first day, have to cross a small river, but there was no bridges. And I got to it and I was like, how have I missed this? And I was looking if there was like a trunk in the water that I could sort of wobble across, or bricks or stones. There was nothing. I just had to go for it. And then it cleaned my trainers at least from all the mud, but I was then wet and cold and squelchy, and I just thought, oh, this is like dragging me further and further down. But yeah, there's a lot of planning going into it. But then that's what happens when you do it, I suppose, on your own. I suppose like when we have sports relief and comic relief and things on TV, and it was a similar time, I think, when Tom Daly was doing something recently.
That's right. He did his row and run and bike ride, didn't he? From London down to Southampton, I think.
I was really sort of, really happy he's doing it for charity. Obviously, that's brilliant and that's great. But part of me was like, I've done the first 2 days literally on my own. I've had no support, apart from my dad for a little bit on the first day. And this guy's got like masseuse, physios, dietitians, and all these people with him. And it's just like, oh, that's not fair.
It is another world, isn't it, when you look at what's available to people. Well, I want to try and wrap this up, because I feel like we've had some brilliant conversation. One of the biggest things that's standing out for me from what you said is like, just don't be afraid. If you've got an idea, speak to your leadership team and just get something started, get the ball rolling, no matter what the kind of size or the concept is, and draw in as many people as you can. Inspire your children, the teachers, your colleagues, and the parents, the community. Fundraising wise, one of the places we've got the most fundraising from is companies that we've spent a lot of money with within our school, whether that's extensions or building work or the people who supply the printer. Schools pay a lot of money to contractors throughout the year, and they're also quite happy to sponsor events. It's good for them, it's good for their publicity. So have a speak to your bursar and see who they spend the most money with every year, and drop them a message.
I haven't thought of that.
Our recent event that we've got coming up in October, we've been supported by 2 or 3 companies that have, it might be the business that cuts the grass every week, or the company that fixes the printer every time it breaks, which seems to be every 2 or 3 days, or the alarms company. There's so many companies that we as schools spend so much money with. So Andy, before we finish, what's next for you? What have you got on the challenge bucket list? Have you got anything in the pipeline?
So I think the Nottingham to France is kind of done. I'm not someone to give up as like that, so I don't see it as giving up, because my mission was to raise awareness and to raise money, and I did that. I raised over £4,000 for Diabetes UK. Like I said, I was on the local sort of news and Knots TV in the paper, raising awareness. That friend basically diagnosing her daughter, thanks to what we'd told her, was just the icing on the cake. So as a mission, I suppose it was ticked off. It was complete. The run obviously didn't quite work. I got all the way to London before I had to call it a day, because I was just so beaten up. And it was mentally, but it was just my feet were shredded apart because they were constantly wet. I'd never suffered with blisters, but it's the worst I've ever had. I think with it being postponed twice and then having that storm week, it's just kind of something in my head just saying, look, this isn't the one. This isn't going to happen. So at the moment, there's nothing really in the pipeline. I'm doing some running races. So I've got the Knots Half in September. There's a local route near me called the Erewash Valley Trail that's actually got a fastest known time on it. So there's a website called Fastest Known Time, which is like a worldwide thing where people can set a certain route, and then you've got proper runners like Killian Jornet and people like that doing it. So that I'm quite fancy having a go at that, because it's about 30 miles, so that's quite a nice distance for me. I quite fancy having a crack at that and taking that fastest known time. But no, it is, funnily enough, saying, when I said to my wife, I said, "Oh, I've got this podcast coming up and it's getting me thinking again." Her first reaction was like, "No, not anymore. We're done." Because bless her, she, as all the partners, whether it's a woman doing it or a man doing it, they suffer just as much as we do, I suppose. She has the fallout from it, and she has to be strong for me, even though inside she's terrified something's going to go wrong. So my wife's always been amazing at supporting all the silly challenges that I've done. But yeah, something will come up, because it always does. I like to have something in the pipeline. I find for little things like training, I train much better if I know something's coming up.
100%.
Where if I have no races or no events or anything, I find it really easy to just still go out for runs, but there's no purpose apart from just, I want to go for a run. Whereas if I want to train, I need something. I'm a bit fickle like that for some reason.
No, I'm exactly the same. And I know what you say about, making sure you've got a supportive partner, and also that you yourself can be adaptable. Like you say, you've got a family, I've got a young family as well, and you can't just say, right, I'm off for the whole weekend. You're going to have to look after everyone, and tired, hungry me when I get back as well. It's about finding balance and fitting that training in and around your lifestyle and your family's lifestyle at the same time. It's that's a whole other conversation, and I said we touched on in previous sessions, but I think it always keeps coming back up, because even just as a teacher, if you don't have children or a partner, even just being a teacher alone is a huge amount of work that takes up a lot of your time, and being able to get that healthy balance between, or work-life balance, it's hard, and it takes a while to really think, actually, I need to put myself first, because otherwise I'm not even going to be able to do my job. I do think that takes time. All right, so Andy, you've given me some brilliant ideas, and I'm already going to look up some of the events that you've said, because very much like you, as soon as I see someone who's doing something massive, I'm like, right, how can I get on this? How can I do this?
Yeah.
Teachers Run Club's brilliant for that, because people are posting daily on all these things that they're doing all over the country. You think, right, that one's on the bucket list. That one's next. Need to do that, and maybe I need to start asking my head teacher to pay in from some of my events too.
Yeah, well, I've one thing that's quite exciting. I'm moving schools in September, so I'm going to another school, and they actually do a 5K fun run. They've done it for years, and then obviously we had COVID, and the two sort of main organisers have left the school, and obviously with my sort of running background, I've been tasked to sort of get it going again, which is really exciting. So it's a full-on open event, so the community are involved. You have children running, you have proper club runners running, and it's just a 5K. And obviously we focus it on it being a fun run, so it's open to everybody. We do get fast runners, but you could pretty much walk it, you could dress up, whatever. So that's quite a nice, although I won't be running it, that's quite a nice challenge in a way, to get that up and running and try and make it as big as it's ever been.
That sounds really interesting. I'd love to talk to you more about that after you do it, actually, because I think that's something that a lot of schools would love to hear about. All right, we're gonna leave it there. But if people want to see what you're doing, where are you most active? Is it Twitter or Instagram or both?
A bit of both. I do want to get better at Twitter, to be fair. I tend to go on it and read other people's stuff, but not post as much. But yeah, I quite like Twitter. And then I've got Instagram as well. So
your Twitter account is at GRANDYVILLE, and we'll include that in the notes at the end. And on Instagram, you're Mr_ACG. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much again, Andy, for joining us.
No, it's been a pleasure.
And for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you If you have any comments, feel free to leave them. You'll be able to pick this up on YouTube currently, and look out for our next 2 or 3 more episodes coming out in this short series. So thank you again, everyone, for listening, and we'll hope to hear from you again soon. Thank you.